What simple thing can accidentally end your life? Picture this. You're standing on top of a massive pile of grain, sand, or even rocks. It seems harmless, right? Just you feeling like the king of the hill. But oh, friend, that's where the danger hides. One wrong move, one little shift, and bam, you've triggered a mini landslide, and guess what? You're not outrunning it. Here's the deal. When you're on top of a loose pile of small stuff like grain or sand, it's like standing on a trap. The moment something shifts beneath your feet, maybe you move, or the pile naturally settles, it creates a chain reaction. Suddenly, all those particles start flowing like water, and they don't care if you're in the way. Before you know it, you're sinking. Fast. The pile starts swallowing you up like quicksand. Try to move. That just makes it worse. Your body weight presses down, the material flows even more, and suddenly you're not standing on the pile anymore. You're part of it. Here's the kicker. It doesn't take much to get completely buried. A few feet of grain or sand over your head. That's enough to trap you, cut off your air, and leave you in serious trouble. Plus, if you're in a confined space like a grain silo, things get even sketchier. Think of it as a one-way ticket to getting completely engulfed. Moral of the story? Respect the pile. Whether it's grain, sand, or rocks, these things aren't playgrounds. They're silent killers waiting to suck you in if you give them half a chance. Catchy takeaway. If you don't want to become a human time capsule, stay off the heap. And if you really must climb it, bring a buddy and some safety gear. Otherwise, you might end up in the local news as a cautionary tale of what not to do. Okay, so picture this. You're out for a nice hike. Nothing crazy, just one of those easy trails they rave about. Maybe it's the Grand Canyon, or some other jaw-dropping place where nature likes to show off. You're soaking in the views, feeling all outdoorsy, and then, oh, you notice something weird. No barriers. Like none. Just a casual path and a sheer drop into oblivion. Now let's talk about those falls. Most people think anyone who tumbles off a trail must have been doing something dumb, like hanging off a cliff for the perfect selfie. And sure, that happens. But honestly, I think it's a lot less dramatic and a whole lot scarier. Imagine you're walking, already tired from the heat or the long day. Maybe your legs are wobbly, or your brain's on autopilot. All it takes is one misstep, one oops, and gravity doesn't give refunds. Even on these easy hikes, the trails can get narrow, uneven, or slippery. You're just one distracted moment away from your foot slipping, or that loose bit of dirt giving way. And here's the kicker. There's often nothing to stop you. No railing, no net, just you and a whole lot of air before the ground rushes up to say hello. People don't talk enough about how exhaustion plays into it, either. When you're zonked, your balance sucks. Your brain gets sloppy. You look at the gorgeous canyon and forget to look down. Maybe it's not even dramatic. You just wander too close to the edge without realizing it, and bye-bye. So yeah, if you're hitting up a trail, even an easy one, keep your wits about you. Pay attention, take breaks, and don't let those killer views hypnotize you into stepping where you shouldn't. Nature's got no safety net, so don't let your tired feet write a tragic headline. One wrong step and easy trail turns into easy way to fall to your death. Here's a cautionary tale about nearly checking out over something as innocent as a peppermint. Picture this. I'm lying in bed, sucking on one of those big, old-school peppermints. I'd been using them to deal with the nasty taste left by a year of chemo treatments. Seemed harmless enough, right? Wrong. Out of nowhere, that peppermint decides it's time for a jailbreak. It slips straight down my throat, and suddenly, I can't breathe. Total airway shutdown. Let me tell you, there's no panic quite like realizing your next breath isn't coming because a piece of candy has taken you hostage. But here's the wild part. In that moment of blind panic, instinct kicked in. I lurched over the side of my bed, thankfully a waterbed with a hard edge, and somehow managed to do a DIY Heimlich maneuver on myself. A couple of chest compressions later, that peppermint shot out like a missile, and I could breathe again. Crisis averted. Lesson learned. No more peppermints in bed for me. Ever. But seriously, this kind of thing happens more than you'd think. Choking is one of those sneaky ways people die because it often hits when you're alone, and there's no one around to help. Whether it's candy, gum, or even food, it's not worth the risk, especially if you're lying down or distracted. Here's how to keep yourself from becoming a cautionary tale. No eating in bed. It's cozy, sure, but it's a recipe for disaster. Know the Heimlich. Learn how to do it for yourself and others. It's a lifesaver, literally. Take choking seriously. If you're prone to it or recovering from treatments that mess with your swallowing, be extra cautious. Catchy takeaway: dying over a piece of candy? Hard pass. Keep the snacks off your pillow and the Heimlich in your back pocket. Trust me, that late-night peppermint isn't worth risking your last breath. Let me tell you about a kid I worked with, a young guy, but you wouldn't know it by the way he moved. He was always limping, stiff, and constantly heading to physical therapy. He walked like someone 3 times his age. After a while, my curiosity got the better of me, so I asked him what was up. What he told me still haunts me. Turns out, one night a young woman decided she couldn't take it anymore. She got into a fight with her boyfriend, wrote a goodbye letter, and left it on her car's passenger seat. Then, in a split-second decision, she gunned it and drove head-on into the first car she saw on the road. That car? It was his. She succeeded in taking her own life, but in doing so, she destroyed his. He survived the crash, sure, but just barely. He's now trapped in a body that's in constant pain, facing years, maybe decades, of chronic suffering because of someone else's decision. Here's the thing: suicide by car isn't just a personal choice. It's a decision that can ruin lives far beyond your own. That split-second solution to her pain turned this guy's life into a never-ending nightmare. What's the takeaway here? If you're struggling, there are ways to get help. Talk to someone, a friend, family, therapist, anyone. It might not feel like it in the moment, but there's always a way out that doesn't involve bringing others down with you. So you're on a tiny ladder, just a couple of steps up, nothing crazy, right? But that's all it takes to go from fixing a light bulb to making your way to the ER, or worse. The thing is, small ladders are sneaky dangerous because they give you just enough height to get some serious airtime if you slip. And let's be real, gravity is not your friend in this scenario. Here's how it plays out. You're balancing on the second or third step, maybe reaching for something, and bam, you misjudge your footing. In that split second, your body does this involuntary Olympic gymnastics routine you didn't sign up for. And guess what? There's no safety net. You flip or twist, and gravity sends you headfirst into the ground. It's a straight shot to a broken neck, a skull fracture, or some other equally awful injury. The scariest part? It happens fast. You don't need to be scaling skyscrapers or doing anything crazy to end up in a bad way. A small fall can be just enough to mess you up for life or end it. People think, oh, it's just a short fall, I'll be fine. But a lot of serious injuries and accidental deaths start exactly like this. Want to not be that person? Here's the cheat code: always steady the ladder. Make sure the ground is solid underneath it. And if you're leaning over, have someone spot you. Oh, and maybe don't stand on the very top step like it's a podium. Ladders aren't forgiving when things go sideways, literally. So yeah, a tiny ladder might look harmless, but underestimate it, and it could be the most dangerous couple of feet you'll ever climb. Stay careful out there. Let me tell you about this kid I knew back in 7th grade. It's kind of wild, but also one of those things that makes you think, wow, life really doesn't play around sometimes. So this kid starts out with what seems like a basic ear infection. No big deal, right? We've all had one at some point, and it's usually just a little annoying. You take some antibiotics, maybe deal with the earache for a bit, and you're good to go. But for him, it wasn't that simple. Turns out, the infection decided it wasn't content with just chilling in his ear. Nope, it went rogue and started spreading. Apparently, infections can move fast if they get into the wrong places, and in his case, it traveled straight to his brain. Yeah, his brain. I didn't even know that could happen back then, but it's totally a thing. When an ear infection gets out of control, it can cause something called meningitis or even a brain abscess. Basically, really bad stuff that you don't want happening up there. And the scary part? It all went down fast. One day he's just dealing with an earache, maybe feeling kind of crummy, and before anyone really realizes how serious it is, he's in the hospital. From what I remember, it wasn't long after that when he passed away. Just like that, gone. Over an ear infection. What's crazy is how preventable it probably was if things had been caught early enough. Like, ear infections are common, but when you ignore them or don't get them treated, they can spiral into something way more dangerous. And by the time you start getting symptoms like headaches, fever, or dizziness, anything that suggests it's moved to your brain, it might already be too late. So the moral of the story? Don't mess around with your health, even if it's something small. If you've got an ear infection, don't just tough it out or hope it goes away. See a doctor, take the meds, and make sure it's handled. Life can throw curveballs, but don't let a little thing like this sneak up and take you out of the game. Let's talk about one of the easiest and sneakiest ways to accidentally die at the beach: picking up a live cone snail. I know, sounds ridiculous, right? Like it's just a snail, how bad could it be? But trust me, these little guys are not to be messed with. Here's the setup. You're strolling along the shore, having a great day, and you spot this beautiful shell in the sand. It's all swirly and colorful, practically begging you to pick it up. So you do. Except, surprise, the gorgeous shell you're holding belongs to a cone snail, and that tiny creature is packing one of the most potent venoms in the world. Here's where it gets dicey. Cone snails are hunters, and their venom is designed to paralyze fish instantly. But when a human picks one up, it doesn't know the difference. It feels threatened and bam, it shoots out a harpoon-like tooth filled with venom straight into your hand. And this isn't your run-of-the-mill sting. We're talking about a neurotoxin that can cause paralysis, respiratory failure, and death. What's even scarier? It's basically painless at first. You might feel a little pinch, like a bee sting, and think, oh, no big deal. But within minutes, the venom starts doing its thing. You could get numbness, trouble breathing, blurred vision. Basically, your body starts shutting down, and there's no anti-venom for it. If you get stung by one of these bad boys, it's all about managing symptoms and hoping you make it to the hospital in time. And the kicker? Some cone snail species carry enough venom to kill 20 adults. Let that sink in. One tiny snail, one bad decision, and you could be out of the game before you even realize what happened. So there's this guy at a party, the kind of dude who randomly drops life advice between sips of his drink. He's mid-conversation when someone mentions a dentist appointment, and suddenly he's like, "Let me tell you how I know tooth infections can kill you." The room quiets down because who drops a line like that out of nowhere? He leans in and starts his story. Turns out, when he was younger, his cousin had this bad toothache. Nothing major at first, just one of those dull, nagging pains. His cousin figured it was no big deal, popped some painkillers, and moved on with life. But after a few days, things escalated. His face started swelling, and he could barely eat or talk. Still, he kept brushing it off, saying, "I'll deal with it later." Well, the guy continues. Later never came because the infection spread. It turned into an abscess, which is basically a nasty pocket of pus, and then it got into his bloodstream. He pauses for dramatic effect, like he's the star of some medical drama. Once that happens, you're looking at sepsis. That's when your body freaks out trying to fight the infection, and it can shut down your organs. My cousin, he ended up in the ICU. The partygoers are wide-eyed at this point. He survived, the guy says finally, but just barely. He had to have emergency surgery, weeks of antibiotics, the works. The doctors told him straight up, if he'd waited even another day, he'd be dead. He takes a sip of his drink and finishes with, "So yeah, brush your teeth. Don't ignore a toothache. A little floss and toothpaste can save your life." The room bursts into nervous laughter, but you can tell everyone's mentally planning their next dentist visit. When I was 18, my doctor gave me some sage advice. She said, "The most common cause of death for someone your age is stupidity. If it looks too far to jump, it is. If you think you might need to call a cab, you definitely need to call a cab. If he says that he doesn't need to wear a condom, you need to leave immediately. You are an intelligent young woman. If something doesn't feel right, trust your instincts. Don't be stupid, and you'll be fine." Let's talk about frostbite, a super sneaky and surprisingly easy way to mess yourself up, or worse. My husband deals with it every year, and let me tell you, people have no idea how quickly it can turn bad. It's not just about feeling cold, it's about your body literally freezing. Here's the deal. Frostbite happens when your skin and the tissues underneath actually freeze because of prolonged exposure to extreme cold. Your body tries to keep your core warm, so it cuts off blood flow to your extremities, fingers, toes, nose, ears. And that's when things start to go south. Without blood flow, those areas freeze solid. Skin turns white or grayish yellow and feels waxy. And if it gets really bad, you can lose feeling altogether, which means you might not even realize how bad it is until you're dealing with dead tissue. A lot of people think frostbite only happens in extreme conditions, like climbing Everest or trekking across Antarctica. Nope. It can happen just as easily when you're out shoveling snow, taking a winter hike, or even just waiting too long for a bus in freezing weather. And here's where people mess up. They grossly underestimate what freezing means. Even temps just below freezing, combined with wind or wet clothes, can set the stage for frostbite. If you've got other health issues like diabetes or circulation problems, frostbite can hit even faster and complicate things like you wouldn't believe. Recovery can be brutal. Think weeks of pain, nerve damage, and even amputations if it gets bad enough. The best way to avoid frostbite? Layer up, stay dry, and don't push your luck in cold weather. If you start feeling numb or your skin changes color, get inside and warm up immediately. But do it gently. No hot water or rubbing frozen areas that can cause more damage. Dead beached whales. Sounds harmless, right? I mean, it's just a big OL whale lying there on the beach, looking like a scene from some nature documentary. But let me tell you, those things are like ticking time bombs. Literal, disgusting, deadly time bombs. Here's how it works. When a whale dies, all the gases from decomposition start building up inside its body. Normally, out in the ocean, all that pressure has somewhere to go. But when a whale is stranded on the beach, there's nowhere for those gases to escape. The whole thing basically turns into a massive, bloated balloon of rotting whale guts. Now, if nobody relieves the pressure, like by carefully venting it, it keeps building up until boom, the whale explodes. And when I say explodes, I mean explodes. We're talking chunks of blubber, bones, and whatever nasty stuff was brewing inside flying everywhere. If you're standing too close, you're in the blast zone. And trust me, that's not where you want to be. There have been actual cases where people died because of this. Some got hit by the explosion itself. Blubber chunks can be surprisingly deadly when launched at high speed. Others thought it'd be fun to climb on top of the whale, because apparently people do that. And when it blew, they were launched 50 feet into the air like some horrific, smelly cannonball. And let's be real, the landing's not going to be a soft one. There are many more ways than that to die from monoxide poisoning. The big ones that I can think of are faulty gas heaters/boilers. It's odorless and tasteless, and low doses make you befuddled and sleepy. So you'll die in your sleep, very little chance of waking up. We have older gas appliances in our home. We have a monoxide detector alarm in each room they are in. Also, inexperienced campers might bring a disposable barbecue into their tent after cooking with it to warm the place up, then go to sleep. Same as above, this is guaranteed death for all the family. Carbon monoxide is no joke. Let's talk about cattle, a surprisingly easy way to accidentally meet your end if you're not careful. If you work with them every day, it's easy to get comfortable, even forget how dangerous they can be. But here's the thing, cattle are big, like 1,300 pounds of pure muscle big. And that kind of weight doesn't mess around. First off, they don't even have to mean to hurt you to do some serious damage. A cow just shifting its weight can crush you if you're in the wrong spot, like stuck between them and a fence or a wall. It's not personal, they're just huge animals doing their thing. But that doesn't make it any less deadly. A moment of inattention and boom, you've got broken ribs, internal injuries, or worse. Now, if a cow or bull actually takes exception to you, that's a whole different story. They're incredibly strong and fast when they want to be, and they'll headbutt, kick, or flat-out charge if they feel threatened. A pissed-off bull can turn a casual day on the farm into a trip to the ER, or worse, the morgue, in seconds. And here's where it gets even scarier. People with zero experience around cattle think they're just big, friendly animals. They'll walk right up to them, try to pet them, even snap selfies like they're posing with a family dog. Bad idea. These animals aren't pets, and they don't think like humans. One wrong move, and you're in their way, or worse, their target. Rabies, a terrifyingly easy way to accidentally die if you're not paying attention. Here's the deal. Rabies is basically a death sentence if you don't get treatment right after being bitten by an infected animal. And the wild part, a lot of people don't realize how serious it is until it's way too late. Rabies is caused by a virus that messes with your nervous system. It's usually transmitted through the bite or scratch of an infected animal. Think dogs, bats, raccoons, foxes, basically any mammal can carry it. Once that virus gets into your system, it travels to your brain and starts wreaking havoc. At first, it might feel like the flu, fever, headache, maybe some muscle weakness. But then it goes full-on horror movie, confusion, hallucinations, paralysis, and eventually death. Here's the kicker. By the time you're showing symptoms, it's game over. There's no cure once it reaches that stage. This is why getting treatment immediately after a bite is so critical. The post-exposure vaccine, which you can get after being bitten, can stop the virus before it takes hold. It's incredibly effective, but only if you get it before symptoms appear. And don't think rabies is just a problem in far-off places. Even in developed areas, cases pop up, especially if you're around wild animals or unvaccinated pets. One of the sneakiest things? Bat bites. They're tiny, sometimes you don't even feel them, and boom, you're exposed without knowing it. So the golden rule? If an animal bites or scratches you, don't just shrug it off. Clean the wound immediately with soap and water, and get yourself to a doctor ASAP. Even if the animal seems fine, don't gamble with your life. It's not worth the risk. Rabies is no joke. It's one of the easiest ways to accidentally die, but also one of the most preventable. Stay smart, get vaccinated if you're in high-risk situations, and don't mess around if an animal bite happens. Take it seriously, it could save your life. Severe allergies. A super easy way to accidentally die if you're not prepared or don't even know you have one. It's wild how fast things can go from that's weird to call an ambulance when it comes to allergies. Here's the thing. A lot of people don't even know they have a severe allergy until it's too late. Maybe you've never been stung by a bee before, or you're trying a food you've never eaten, like shellfish or a nut you didn't know was in that cookie. And then bam, your body decides to freak out. Your throat starts swelling up, you can't breathe, your skin gets all itchy and blotchy, and next thing you know, you're in the middle of an anaphylactic reaction. Anaphylaxis is no joke. It's your body's over-the-top response to something it thinks is dangerous, and it can shut you down fast. Your airways close up, your blood pressure tanks, and if you don't get help quickly, things can get fatal real quick. Now, if you already know you have a severe allergy, carrying an EpiPen is a literal lifesaver. The adrenaline it delivers can buy you precious time to get to a hospital. But here's the kicker. EpiPens only work temporarily. You still need emergency services to back you up. The problem comes when you don't have your EpiPen handy, or worse, you're out in the middle of nowhere without easy access to medical help. That's when things get really dicey. For people who don't know they're allergic, the first reaction is often the most dangerous. By the time you realize what's happening, you might already be in big trouble. Another quick way to go. Compressed air. A deceptively dangerous way to accidentally kill yourself. You've probably seen people messing around with it, using it to clean themselves off or just goofing around. But let me tell you, don't do it. That stuff is no joke. Compressed air shoots out with insane pressure. It's not just air, it's air moving fast enough to blast dirt, grime, and whatever else off of surfaces. Now imagine that pressure hitting your skin. If the air finds even the tiniest cut, scrape, or weak spot, it can get under your skin, literally. That's when things go south. What happens is the air can push into your tissues, and then into your bloodstream. This is called an air embolism, and trust me, it's as bad as it sounds. Basically, an air bubble gets into your blood and starts cruising around your body, eventually blocking a blood vessel. If that happens in your brain, heart, or lungs, you're in serious trouble. Think strokes, heart attacks, or just flat-out death, and it can all happen way faster than you'd expect. And no, it doesn't take some huge industrial compressor to do the damage. Even those smaller compressed air cans people use for cleaning keyboards can be dangerous if you misuse them. It's not about the size of the equipment, it's about the pressure. You might not even feel it at first. One minute you're blowing dirt off your pants, the next you're dizzy, struggling to breathe, or worse. By the time you realize what's happening, it could already be too late. Overdosing on over-the-counter medication. The lethal dose and the regular dose for common OTC medicines are actually pretty close to one another. The craziest may be vitamin A. You can overdose on vitamin A, and cause I think liver damage. Essentially, the only really safe vitamin is vitamin C. The projected lethal dose of vitamin C essentially requires you to replace your blood with vitamin C, at which point you're already going to die because you don't have blood. Even drinking too much water can kill you. Hyperhidrosis happens fairly frequently, often by marathon runners who drink too much water and remove electrolytes from their system. Actually, I almost got killed myself by using candles while in the bath. I'm the kind of person who chill a long time during bathes, and there was this one day where electricity was cut, and the only solution to light the bathroom was by using some candles. After several minutes, I felt like some pressing on my chest. I wasn't very aware of what was going on, but surely it was bad. I just thought I ate something sketchy before. In fact, candles were consuming most of the oxygen of the room, and I was slightly suffocating more and more. At some point, I felt so much difficulty to breathe that I just looked around myself and immediately shut off the candles and opened the bathroom to get some oxygen back. I was just stupid for getting all openings closed off. I'm sure I'd be in much more trouble if I was more neglectful. Just imagine how dumb my death would be. Asphyxia during bath time.